So I thought I'd rock up with just a little bit more to say about Steve Wright, following on from the Alcohol Free Life podcast that I did last week, the tribute to Steve. Thank you so much for the messages that came in. I mean, I was a little bit amazed at how many views that video got. I guess people just really want to hear more about Steve and to hear what an amazing guy he was. And the literally the outpouring of emotion for Steve has just been incredible. Honestly, he would have been blown away. I swear. I mean, we know he was beloved, but wow, just the people who've been rocking up, sharing stories, just saying how much they are, how much he impacted on their life and how different their life is going to be, their weekends. Now he's not on Sundays. And of course it was really sad last week to hear the tribute. But yeah, it's just been incredible to see the outpouring of love for him. And a few lovely messages. Well, I've had loads of lovely messages, but a few messages saying, oh, Janey, I think you should present Sunday Love Songs. Well, of course I would absolutely love to. So feel free to let the BBC know that. I think it's a little bit unlikely, but of course it would be lovely. I just wanted to share just a little bit more about times with Steve, and also what I did in the session last week, when, well, it was part of the podcast, if you like, was I shared a little process, a little thought process, which people seem to really love, where I got you thinking about about how much time you've got left and how difficult it is when you procrastinate, and how important it is to kind of seize the day and do what you say you want to do with your life, which of course is kind of the work I do all the time now with people who are ditching the booze and people who are starting to focus on their optimum health. They start to realize, actually, there's something I've always wanted to do, and now is the time. So people seem to really enjoy that little I don't know, snippet of positivity, if you like, or thought-provoking stuff. So I thought I'd do a bit more for you. But first, let me just share a few other things that I've been thinking about Steve across this last week. So some of the messages that I've seen on YouTube or wherever have reminded me of some of the characters from the past that Steve used to do long before I was working with him, when he used to do the Mr. Angry and Gervais, and of course Gavin, who used to do those characters. I mean, oh my God, what a star. And then, I'd completely forgotten the fillet of fish thing that he used to do. He used to actually take fish, like fresh fish, to gigs. I mean, you wouldn't get away with that now, would you? And lots of people have mentioned road shows, the Radio 1 road shows. And I remember rocking up to some of those when I was, in my younger days, and I'd like rock up and see some of those DJs. They always used to be on beaches in the UK, didn't they? They were fantastic. And Steve would actually go and do those events and chuck out fish or Mars bars. And I've seen a few really nice pictures, really fun snaps that people have put up on social media. Actually, the hot news that I wasn't going to share yet because I thought it was much too soon, but my publisher has said, no, you have to share early, that I have a book coming out in October. It's not till October, but apparently lots of kind of bookshops and festivals get booked out really early. So I have a book coming out October 20th, I think it is, called From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic. And of course, that book will look back at my singing days, my days on tour with George Michael and Wham, the various other bands and sessions that I did, my days at Virgin Radio, and obviously my time at Radio 2 working with Steve Wright and everything in between. So and the reason that the publisher says, okay, you have to tell people now about this book, is because you can pre-order it, but it's ages away. But apparently, if you have a bookshop near you, maybe you've got a bookshop that does events, or of somewhere that does talks, or the kind of thing where it might work for me to rock up and do something and share some memories. I'd really love to do that. Love to include your town or wherever on my little book tour that I'm going to do towards the end of October, early November. So please drop me a message if you know of anywhere that does that kind of thing. I've already got one booking in Brighton where I think they use kind of the back room of a pub, and they have kind of people do music biz stuff. So that sounds really fun. But any festivals, any bookshop type things, let me know. It would be great to meet you. So the book's called From Wham to Woo: A Life on the Mic. So that's my little bit of hot news that I wanted to share. So please get in touch if you've got any ideas for that. Anyways, back on Steve. I was also remembering back to how so many of the guests that would come into the show, I think I mentioned this last week, that lots of the guests, lots of the celebrities, they loved coming into the show. They really did. And, because it was good fun, it was a good vibe. And the politicians, they sometimes got more than they bargained for, because it could be quite hard hitting if you needed to be. But everybody kind of enjoyed coming in. But with a lot of the celebs, the ones that came in, relatively regularly, if they had something to plug or whatever, it honestly was as though Steve was their best mate. He was really like that with everybody. So, I remember somebody would come in and it would just be, I don't know, it might be Peter Kay or it might be Richard Hammond or, whatever. And we'd maybe not seen them for 8 months or a year or even 2 years, because it's that long since they've done a book or a tour or whatever they're promoting. But Wrighty would literally kind of welcome them like they're, his best mate or his next door neighbor. And everything was always very relaxed. And he'd be saying, oh, I've just come back from the States. As you know, he loved going to America. He used to go lots. He used to go just for the weekend, a lot. And he'd say, oh, I've just come back from the States. I've got these really good painkillers. So if you've got a headache, have one of these. We can't get them in the UK, but they're really effective. So he'd be kind of handing out. And I used to say, stop it. Absolute drug pusher. What are you doing? They'd say, oh, yeah, they're just headache pills. And then we'd have an argument about whether or not echinacea would be better if you got a cold. And of course he'd say, yeah, I'm sure you and your natural remedies, I'm sure it's a good idea, but it takes about 6 weeks to kick in. Need to sort it now. So I just remember that it really was a case of everybody felt like he was their best mate, because that really was the vibe. And there was a sense of confidentiality in that studio as well. It was a little bit of the Chatham House rules. They say, what we went on in there stayed in there. And I've often joked that we could make some fantastic outtakes of the stuff that happened before the mic went live. But of course, most of it, we wouldn't share anyway. Because celebrities and actors and authors told us all kinds of stuff that I think there was just something about Steve that people kind of just trusted him, thought of him as their mate. So celebrities would come in and share all kinds of stuff that, well, let's just say just as well that he was discreet, right? Because had he chosen not to be, it would be really interesting. And I've already mentioned he was incredibly witty and funny. So some of the comments off air were really, really hilarious. But I mean, in a wicked kind of way, but not with any malice. Let's put it that way. So my little positivity tip, if you like, my little positive psychology piece for this week is that a lot of us have stuff going on that we are trying to change, and things feel we get to something in our lives where we just feel stuck. We just feel completely stuck, and we're railing against it, and we're trying to make it different, and we're wishing it was different, and on and on and on. And actually, somebody once taught me this really lovely analogy of a lighthouse. And so it's a really good idea to imagine that whatever problem you're dealing with, whatever you've got going on, ask yourself, is it a lighthouse? And what we mean by that is it something that is not movable, that you don't have the ability to shift, that it's not actually going to change? because most of us spend tremendous amount of time banging on the door of the lighthouse or trying to move the lighthouse a few inches, but it ain't going anywhere. There are some things, there are some problems, there are some issues that we can't change, that we can't do anything about at all. End of. You know, they're a lighthouse. They've been there for hundreds of years. They're heavy, they're solid, they're not moving. And railing against it is just going to exhaust us and wear us out, but it's not actually going to get us to where we want to be. So if something really is a lighthouse, if something is unchangeable, unmovable, if it's not within our power to shift it, then we have to accept that. But what we have to remember is that usually around lighthouses, there are really, really massive boulders, huge boulders that have been there for, again, probably hundreds of years. And they're absolutely huge, but with a tremendous amount of force and perhaps huge amount of teamwork, you might be able to shift them an inch or two. You know, it's going to take a lot to shift them, but it could be possible. It could be possible with a tremendous amount of effort or a huge united front of, you know, and several massive trucks or whatever, that the boulders could be shifted a little bit. So you can ask yourself, is it a boulder? And if it is, do I have the impetus? Is it something that I have to gather that the strength, the wherewithal, the team, the whatever, to be able to move that? And again, if not, then you have to accept it's a boulder and you can't do much about it. And then, of course, around the boulders, there are lots of smaller stones. And those smaller stones are movable. You can, you know, they're going to be heavy. Of course they are, and probably stuck into the bed of the ocean. But you could, with some impetus, with some force, with some skill, move some of those larger stones, whether on your own or as part of teamwork. So they're really worth considering. So which aspects of the problem you're facing are the stones that you could, with some effort, that you could move? And what do you need? What support and help do you need to be able to move those stones? And then around the stones, there's lots of pebbles. The pebbles are pretty easy to move. You just have to decide how many of them you want to move and where you want to move them to. But that's a fairly easy win. Just have to choose. Just have to be willing to move the pebbles and get your hands wet. So I hope that makes sense. It might just make sense to somebody. You might just be thinking, oh God, that thing that I've got going on in my life right now, it's a goddamn lighthouse. And I've just been railing against it for the last however many months. And you know what? It ain't going to change. But there are some things that I can do something about. I can, you know, just to go back to the thing I'm always talking about, I can look after my own health and well-being. I can support, you know, my own mental health, my own self-care. I can do those bits. I can shift some pebbles. I can maybe even move a stone. And actually, that will make a huge difference, even if I can't move the whole lighthouse. So you never know. That might help somebody. Let me know if it does. Make sure you drop me a message if that's beneficial in any way. Don't forget that the work that I do now is, well, I do a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, I'm still presenting shows, albeit some online radio shows. Always open to the fabulous gig coming my way. And I run the Sober Club, which is a community for people who are ditching the booze and focusing on their best life without alcohol. Not people who are at rock bottom and clinically dependent, but people who are, what's that expression, grey area drinkers. They're drinking more than they want to. They know that something has to change. And I'm here to tell you, I just wish someone had told me how freaking fantastic life without the booze is. I wish I'd known sooner. That's my only regret. I so wish I'd known sooner. And I also run family constellations workshops. That's an incredible modality. I offer one-to-one coaching using a whole range of techniques and modalities and therapies, including matrix reimprinting. There's all these fabulously fancy names, but ultimately it all comes down to being able to take back control and focus on living your best life, and focusing on that holistic picture. I also train people to be holistic sober coaches. So that's something I have coming up quite soon. I absolutely love doing this work because it's all about helping people find their purpose and helping people look at, okay, well, which are the pebbles I can change then, or the rocks that I can move. So thank you again if you've only just come across the stuff I do because of Steve Wright. Thanks for bearing with me and listening to some of the other stuff, and keep the messages about Steve and the tributes coming in, because you can never really hear enough of that. I got a really lovely card sent to me in the post, by the way, Letters by Julia. It came from, I've no idea who that even is, but obviously I've looked at the brand and it's really cool. She does this amazing work, and she just sent me this really lovely card with a picture of the team on it, and one of the pics that I'd put on my blog post, and it was really lovely to get that through the mail. So thank you to Letters by Julia, and thanks again to all of you for your lovely messages, and let's keep his memory alive. Thank you.